My name is Jodi Rock. I am by ancestry, I am a Mohawk, Six Nations of the Grand River. I am a registered band member with Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, so I consider both of those communities my home communities. And currently, I'm the specialist with the Indigenous Health and Wellness Program here at Accreditation Canada. My father is Six Nations of the Grand River. My mother is Mississaugas of the Credit, but her mother is Six Nations of the Grand River as well. So in our ways, we trace our ancestry back through our mothers, and going back on my family tree, on my mother's side, both her father and mother, their ancestors go back to the upper and lower Mohawk villages in New York State. So at the time when the settlers were arriving on the continent, my ancestors were in those Mohawk villages. And looking back on my family tree, on two branches of that tree, a Dutch man has married in there. Around the time of the two-row wampum, so I have a particular fondness for that particular belt because I often envision that it could have been my ancestors sitting around having those conversations about that agreement. So the two-row wampum talks about the agreements made between the Mohawk people at that time and the Dutch settlers. So this particular belt is on a white background. So there's three rows of white beads that represents, I believe it's peace, friendship, and respect. There's two solid purple lines, and what those purple lines represent is one is the path of the settlers. So the settlers at that time, they're coming across these Indigenous communities, and this wampum is really speaking to how they're going to coexist in harmony. So the settlers are in their ship. A ship, of course, because that's how they arrived. But they're in their ship and they're going down their path. And within their ship is all of their customs, their beliefs, their values, their practices. They are steering their own ship. The other purple path represents the canoe of the Indigenous people there at that time. And within that canoe is all of the Indigenous ways of knowing, being, and doing. So their practices, their beliefs, their values, and they are the ones steering that canoe, fully in control of that canoe's path. And what the two-row wampum says is that there's no interference. So the canoes travel side by side along that river of peace, friendship, and respect. One is not reaching over to steer the other vessel. One is not saying you need to attach to us and go the same way that we go. They're traveling along their own pathways, independent of each other, with no interference along that river of peace, friendship, and respect. I've supported Indigenous organizations for a number of years. I've advanced, cultural safety in a lot of ways, both at a patient level and at a system level. And one of the things that I come to appreciate was the standardization of approaches. And often what happens is Indigenous communities are feeling like somebody's coming in and telling them how to do things. So when we look at the two-row, that would be like somebody from over in the ship hollering over to the canoe, this is how you need to do things, which is interference. And it's not, supportive of our ways of knowing, being, and doing and restoring our health and wellness. But the Indigenous Health and Wellness Program really stood out as, no, we're not doing that here at Accreditation Canada. What we're doing is we're trying to remove whatever barriers may be in front of that canoe. We are trying to, fortify your canoe in ways that we can with the power and the privilege that comes from this larger system. Accreditation Canada has done the work to learn from Indigenous communities what they want and need and desire to support their rebuilding their bundles in their communities. So that's one thing that really attracted me to the position. So we have a product that's been developed, with Indigenous people, for Indigenous people, but there's tweaks that are necessary. And part of what I really enjoy about this role is that I can go into those communities and talk to those organizations and find out what's working and what's not. I take that back and it's listened to and it's acted upon. One of the things that I hear often is, why should we get accredited? Like, what's the value of being accredited? So coming from, the intergenerational trauma, all those things. I don't carry my language. So I'm learning language, at my age now, learning Anishinaabe Moin, which is the Ojibwe language, Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. I recently attended an event where they talked, the fluent speaker was talking about the word for great grandparent and great grandchildren. But the translation of that word, I believe, means we are inextricably connected. So, what that means is knowledge coming from the previous generations is brought forward to the coming generations. Now, when we have standards, when we have a standardized approach of doing things, when we have a clearly outlined process for that knowledge transmission, I think it kind of speaks to that. It speaks to that we are inextricably connected. So within organizations, having worked for organizations that are not accredited and having worked for organizations that are accredited, there's a big difference in terms of employee experience. So for accredited organizations, you're not going in blind, like you're not rebuilding from nothing. You're going into a very solid foundation of knowledge transmission. So it's connecting from those that came there before you, and you're going to have your place there. The standards, the processes, that continuous quality improvement is so that those coming after you are equipped with the knowledge from those that come before. So when it comes to accreditation, that's what I see, from a lens, looking at it from an Indigenous lens or Indigenous perspective, keeping that in mind. We are all inextricably connected.